Hey, what is up, guys? Tyler here with Secureteam. Well, we have a bit of breaking news, and it's actually pretty exciting. Now, we've all watched the science fiction films where we send people out into space over long periods of time, years. And this has always been a major obstacle, one of many that I will go to here in just a second. But one of the very first obstacles when taking on the idea of long-distance space travel is that of how we are going to put ourselves, or humans in general, into a hibernation state during what could turn out to be a 5-year mission, a 20-year mission, hell, even 1,000 years. So that's one of the big obstacles, and a new company is making headlines and have said that they believe that they have not only unlocked the secret of long-distance space travel, but that they will actually have a working stasis chamber to be used for space travel by 2018. So the company is called SpaceWorks. And through a process that is traditionally used to treat cardiac arrest or traumatic brain injury, is now showing promise as a possible method to enable long-term space travel through hibernation. Behind this effort, according to a new digitaltrends.com article, is John A. Bradford, who is the president of SpaceWorks. And making this a reality is actually much closer than we all think. So, doctors refer to this strategy as something called therapeutic hypothermia, where essentially the body is cooled down to a temperature between 32 and 34 degrees Celsius, the normal body temperature being 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And although this minuscule drop in the body's temperature may seem like it wouldn't do much, it does in fact have a pretty pronounced effect in that it slows down both the heart rate and the blood pressure of a human being, which in a medical emergency would give doctors additional time to work on a patient who possibly has minutes to live. Usually, the patient can be put into stasis, as it's called, for about 2 to 4 days in some cases, although the technique has worked for as long as 2 weeks without any measurable harm. There's evidence that even longer periods of stasis may be possible. A Japanese man once survived 24 days in a hypothermic state after a fall off of a mountain ledge in Japan. Mr. Bradford, along with his company, hope that through additional work to extend the safe period of stasis out to months and possibly years, he says that this technology and the equipment necessary can be automated easily and made space-ready. He goes on to say that there would be some robotic arms and monitoring systems taking care of the passengers. They would have these small transnasal tubes used for cooling and some warning systems as well to bring them back to life and out of the stasis. So it would seem that they've pretty much got this stasis situation figured out. However, there is an entire laundry list of other issues relating to long-term space travel that have not. One of the biggest of those is the long-term effects of low gravity, which can lead to an entire host of medical issues. So Bradford, along with his team, are working on methods to keep the crew members exercising during stasis, one potential solution being electrical stimulation, which is actually already being used in physical therapy today. So, as I said, this is very promising, and while we may have the issue of figuring out how to put people in hibernation while in space, there are actually 11 more extremely great challenges that have so far hindered us, at least publicly, from exploring space and being in a spacecraft for any extended period of time. And I'll just quickly go through some of these here. Now, the first of which is obviously gravity, and just leaving Earth in general. For instance, it cost nearly $200 million just to launch the Mars Curiosity rover. Now add a crew to that and everything a crew needs to survive, and you're talking about a massive payload which would cost much more, you would need more fuel, and so on. Another problem is that our ships, or the craft, again, that we know about, are way too slow. And while hurtling through space is easy, finding an engine to propel us to a speed fast enough Well, that's the real problem. Chemical propellants, of course, are great for the initial push, but that usually burns up within a matter of minutes. And after that, you'd be lucky to reach another planet in our solar system, we'll say Jupiter for instance, in a matter of about maybe 7 or 8 years. So of course, propulsion needs to take a radical turn for us to be able to actually reach anywhere that we're looking to get. Another big hurdle is the fact that space is filled with a ton of debris, and it's a literal minefield. And we're not just talking about space rocks, we're talking about debris that we've put out there from satellites, spent fuel tanks, and everything that we've left from past missions. The U.S. Space Surveillance Network has its eye on about 17,000 objects, each the size of at least a softball, hurtling around the Earth at speeds of around 17,000 miles per hour. And if you count in the smaller pieces, that comes closer to about 500,000 objects currently orbiting the Earth that we know about. So of course, just to make it out of the solar system, we would need some sort of shield to deflect the millions of rogue space objects that could potentially wipe the entire ship out. Another massive problem is the fact that space does not have any GPS. Something called the Deep Space Network, which is a collection of antenna arrays in California, Australia, and Spain, is the only navigational tool that we have for space. Everything from student project satellites to probes, all of these depend on the Deep Space Network to stay oriented. And to do this, they measure how long it takes for a signal to get from the network to the spacecraft and back. And that is how they determine the craft's position and location. Not to mention the fact that the further a craft gets away from Earth, the less reliable this method becomes. And of course, we know that zero gravity basically turns your body into mush. It causes certain immune cells to be unable to do their jobs. Red blood cells start to explode. You get kidney stones. It puts stress on your heart. And really, once a human leaves the protective cocoon, if you want to call it that, of Earth's atmosphere, you begin to be bombarded with subatomic particles that are blasting through space close to the speed of light. And this space radiation also begins to cook you, and your body becomes a potential host for a number of cancers. And unfortunately, when you're up in a spacecraft and these particles begin to knock into the atoms of the aluminum that make it up, well, their nuclei start to blow up, emitting even more superfast particles, which is called secondary radiation. So you're actually making the problem worse, and it's almost like sitting in a microwave. So these are just a handful of the hurdles that we need to get over if we're even thinking seriously about long-distance space travel. However, I firmly believe that we will, and actually we have already started to solve many of these problems. We recently talked about the M drive that was supposedly impossible, this impossible engine that would basically allow us to put a ship into warp drive like you would think of on Star Trek, increasing our speed substantially. And now we have this new company well on its way to figuring out how to put people into hibernation, and I think the rest will start to fall like dominoes. Now, of course, and with all of the strange things, the craft over Earth and in space that we've seen and uncovered here on this channel, there's also a very big possibility that all of these things have been solved for years now. Especially if you're thinking in terms of back-engineered alien craft that has been utilized in our own craft. I mean, what do you guys think? I know many of you would say that, we've already been there. I mean, these problems have been solved years ago, and there's a big part of me that believes that as well. Because we have been seeing these craft blasting off into space, we have been witnessing these unknown objects out in space maneuvering around, and they can't all be alien in nature. Some of them have to be ours, so I guess we'll see what happens, but it is pretty cool news. Wanted to share it with you guys. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. And as always, stay tuned right here to the channel. I've got a lot of interesting things coming, new UFO footage, strange things happening all over the world. You know the deal. Stick right here, and I'll see you guys back in just a bit.